Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to do it to you. I'm sorry for bringing up the world's worst professional comedian. The fact that this man has managed to carve out a career, a professional career as a comedian, when he's about as funny as finding a hard lump on your testicles in the shower. It's genuinely astounding. And it's proof positive of the very DEI policies that the woke left, people who deny what's right in front of their own eyeballs every hour of every day, what they insist doesn't exist. Forget about Harvard and Yale and all these hundreds of studies. You can just look at the things Lenny Henry says while he's trying to be funny and understand the fact that if that man can be a millionaire with a comedy career when root canal work is funnier than him, is proof of DEI. Anyway, today's story, I found this clip of him. He was at the BET DEI whatever awards last night. He gave a speech. It wasn't funny. It was full of totally ludicrous, not just historical inaccuracies, delusional insanity that an 8-year-old knows is fiction. So I'm going to play you it, and we're going to rip the piss out of him because he's an absolute plank. Okay, here it is. Sky News. Sir Lenny Henry takes aim at Trump and Farage at the British Diversity Awards. The actor and comedian was honoured with a Lifetime Achievement Award, which recognised his decades of advocacy and representation in the UK's creative industries. He was given his first job. He was put on television. He was able to be a comedian because of DEI. He was DEI before DEI was a thing. Nobody called it DEI in the 1980s. But when I was 7 and he'd pop up on Saturday morning TV, my dad would point over at the TV and say, he's about as funny as bowel cancer. He's only on the telly because he's got a bit of a tan. Right? He was DEI before the term existed. He's the only comedian who makes his fat ex-wife look funny. Because if you have to pick the second most unfunny comedian in the UK, it's Dawn French. Anyway, let's have a listen. I can't blow a gasket before we get started, can I?
Thank you so much for this. It means so much. Thank you so much for this. It means so much. Thank you. When I first started campaigning 10 years ago with the fantastic Marcus Ryder, who's down here.
Oh, you knew that big fat sack of rats, Dawn Butler, would be there, didn't you? Dawn Butler, another DEI hire. If she was a big fat white lass, they wouldn't trust her to run a lemonade stand at the local church fete, would they? She's an absolute plank. One of the only fat birds in Parliament who makes other fat birds, like, I don't know, Emily Thornberry, look clever. That's how much of a porridge-brained oxygen thief she is.
Diversity was under threat, racism was on the rise, and the far right were getting louder every day. But as I stand here tonight, I think we can all agree everything's getting so much better now.
Yeah, because of you. Everything was better in the 90s. When I was a kid, we all grew up watching The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and The Cosby Show, and we all bought into this pleasant, pleasing fiction that everybody treated each other as individuals, and collectivism was stupid and irrational. But then, lo and behold, the left side of the political aisle didn't like how things were going, did they? There's conspiracy theories about it. It's such an obvious sea change. The conspiracy theory is that around the time of the big financial crash in about 2008, that's why the woke DEI stuff got ramped up so aggressively, because the really, really rich people realised that the working classes were sort of getting annoyed at them. So they said, how can we get rid of this? I know, let's get them at each other's throats again. And it might only be a theory, but what is demonstrably and obviously true is that since about the 2010s, this shit got ramped up to 11, cranked up about 200 notches. And now, people like me, that always considered ourselves to be socially liberal, reasonable, individualists, even as recently as about 2020, well, I've been forced to pick a side, haven't I? I've been forced to pick a side because race hustlers, obviously prejudiced race hustlers like Lenny Henry, get stuck in ostensibly serious productions like the Lord of the Rings show when he's not even an actor. He's barely a comedian. He's definitely not an actor. A man who's failed upwards his entire career. If he was pasty and ginger, he would be a car park attendant. He definitely would be. Nobody finds him funny. Ricky Gervais tortured him in Extras, didn't he? They're always talking about it. There's black American comedians that are funny. Eddie Murphy was really funny. Chris Rock's funny. Lenny Henry is appalling. He's appalling. If he was in America where they actually have a decent number of black people, Lenny Henry would have been a career welfare recipient or a crackhead burglar. But because he was lucky enough to be in England, he somehow became rich and famous, and he's a millionaire comedian actor. And the man has less talent. Well, Lenny Henry makes Bobby Davro look like George Carlin or Bill Hicks or any of the biggest comedy names you can think of, because the man is a joke. Anyway, rant over. We need to get to the glaring historical inaccuracies, the juvenile stupidity of a man who wouldn't be qualified to work in a corner shop.
Look, I know we're living in uncertain and scary times. Feels like many of the things we fought for are being threatened and diversity is under attack. Long before he blundered into Iran, Donald Trump had been at war with diversity. That guy hates DEI so much, he must think it stands for Don't Eye Up Ivanka.
That was terrible. That was terrible. At least have the good grace to look bad about it. Oh, there you go. Yeah, it's like, even I didn't write this, lads. Honest.
Over here, Nigel Farage hates DEI more than he hates going to Clapham. He says we need to get rid of diversity in hiring and go back to a merit-based system.
If we did that, Lenny, you'd definitely be on the rock and roll, son. Definitely. Well, we've seen the crime statistics. You'd be on the rock and roll, or you'd be in Wormwood Scrubs. One of the two.
Here's what I know. We fought slavery and won. We fought...
Right. I have to stop him there. We fought slavery and won. We. Now, if you don't know the basics from high school, in 1787, so a wee bit before Lenny Henry's parents broke into Britain, in 1787, William Wilberforce, great Yorkshireman, met Thomas Clarkson, Granville Sharp, Charles Middleton, handful of other famous abolitionist activist types, right? And then they spearheaded an aggressive parliamentary campaign. That's why William Wilberforce is so famous, because he took it to Parliament. And then in 1807, they passed the Slave Trade Act, and the rest is history, right? The black population of the United Kingdom in 1787 was 0.01%, right? Other than a bloke with a trumpet that David Starkey mentioned in like Henry VIII's court. Other than him, there wasn't any black people in Britain. There was as many black people in Britain in 1787 as there was in Japan. And just because Japan didn't shit all over their own people, and then even though their own people were against immigration for 30 years, 40, 50, 60 years, let's be honest, it's been decades. Enoch Powell would have won by a landslide, wouldn't he? The British people have been anti-immigration for 60 years, and then they've had it rammed down the throats by traitors and liars and scumbags in Parliament, and had it forced upon them. The only reason Japan looks homogenous and Britain doesn't is because their politicians do as they're told. Ethnically, Japan and the UK were almost identical as late as 1950. That's a fact. So Lenny Henry hasn't got a Scooby-Doo what he's talking about. He is as thick as dehydrated whale spunk. He is a human chicken McNugget somehow put on a stage with a microphone, probably because of the machinations of that big fat heifer lump stood behind him. But everything he just said is not just ignorant, it is the polar opposite of the truth. All right? Carry on, Lenny.
Apartheid and won.
Nothing to do with you. That was back on the continent of Africa that you weren't in, unfortunately.
We fought Clause 28 and won. These people will never defeat us because they'll never share our passion. For us, the fight for diversity and inclusion is personal. It's our lived experience.
Lived experience. They only care about lived experience when they're giving you it, don't they? When you tell them anything on your lived experience, they go, pfft. What are you telling me that pointless allegory for? Yeah, who cares? When Tony Romo said to them, my cousin got dragged above a kebab shop and rogered more than a copper's radio by 25 Pakistani men, nobody seemed to give two shits, did they? Because lived experience is only worth something when the enemy is doing it. And that's what they are. He talks about passion. I'll show you some passion, son. The depths of the British public's hatred and loathing for the far left, the socialists, the communists. They can rebrand it and call it whatever they want, woke, neoliberal. I don't care what you call it. The general public's hatred and loathing for the radical collectivists that stole our nation from us and sacrificed at least 250,000 children on the altar of diversity. And every single day there's a new ignominy we have to swallow. Every single day. If it's not the little girls from Southport or little Safi from the Manchester Evening News Arena, every single day I see another photo of a young kid or an English woman or even an old fella. Valdo Calacane killed a few of them, men, but they're all innocent. And every day we have to swallow that pill. So you think we don't share your passion? No. You get treated with kid gloves. You get to go and be on TV shows and be comedians and actors and singers and footballers because you don't want to do a real day's work. Meanwhile, working class lads from the Thames and the Tyne, the working class natives, they're the ones in the sewers chiseling the Johnnies off the walls. Passion. We'll show you some passion. Oh, I guarantee you that. You think middle class, wealthy, LARPing celebrity revolutionaries like Lenny Henry and Dawn Butler can match the passion of the working men whose forebears toiled for centuries to hand us something great? And now we turn on the TV and see the Southport atrocity and see little girls stabbed to death by Rwandans, and you think you've got more passion than me? Nay, Lenny.
Them, it's just part of the grift. Another way of making some quick cash by exploiting people's grievances. They don't have the commitment to make lasting change, but we do.
There we go then. Let's sum up, shall we? I think that last 5 minutes sums me up. We don't have the commitment for lasting change. You think the native inhabitants of Britain are grifting, and the actors and the singers and the rappers and the footballers and the celebrities aren't? Lenny? Oh, that's brilliant. I'm glad to know you're as wrong about that as you are in everything else you've ever talked about in your entire life. The man is an imbecile. His IQ is room temperature, and he has no stomach for what's coming. But we do. I'll put any amount of footballers, rappers, and actors on a field. You put them up against 100 angry scaffolders from the northeast of England. Who do you think's going to win that scrap? Passion? Commitment? We've got it in spades. You don't. So we can end on a high note, which is what I keep telling you. When the commies get their wish and the great revolution comes, they ain't gonna win it. And Lenny and Dawn might have to get a proper job. Anyway, that's going to do me for the day, ladies and gents. Let me know what you think in the comments. You think I'm totally wrong, and in a few years' time, we're all going to be holding hands and kumbaya around a campfire with drill rappers, human traffickers, and grooming gang enthusiasts. You let me know down in the comments, because I want some of the drugs you're taking. All right? See you all tomorrow. Toodle pip. Cheers.